Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Unsportsmanlike Conduct. We're back. I'm finally back from Italy. I've caught up with the jet lag, slept a lot, but I'm back. I've missed a lot, obviously, while I was away, but I kept track of it on Twitter, paying attention, obviously, when I was coming back. Trade deadline was going on in the NBA. There were some trades that went on in the NFL, draft picks being shuffled around. So, finally, I've been able to get home, get a couple days of rest, and now we're back, right back at it. So obviously the most important thing that was going on, I feel like, while I was away in the NBA was the trade deadline. For my beloved Raptors, they kept and held on to Kyle Lowry, which I was kind of happy about considering that the return wasn't as high for what they expected to get from him, and he's a legend in Raptors land. So Kyle, you're staying with the Raps for now, and I love that. They traded away Norm Powell. They got Gary Trent Jr. and Rodney Hood in that trade. I thought it was a smart trade for them considering they would have had to pay Norm coming up. This team isn't going to win a championship this year, so send Norm somewhere where he can be effective to finish out the season, give Portland a chance to try to compete for a championship, and they get a good piece back in Gary Trent Jr., which I think is obviously the best part of that. Probably the biggest trade on NBA trade deadline day was the Bulls acquiring Nikola Vucevic from the Orlando Magic. Good trade for both teams, I think. Obviously, the Bulls get another superstar to put next to Zach LaVine and see if this team can actually make it to the playoffs, if they can see how they'll compete in the playoffs. They're still a young squad. They got Billy Donovan as their head coach, which is a pretty good coach to have with this young squad, and they've been playing some good ball. Obviously, now since they got Vooch, they've lost 2 in a row, and they haven't looked great. But I think that team will come together. They'll learn to play with each other. And I expect them to make the playoffs and, not go far in the playoffs, but at least give Bulls fans a little bit of hope and then develop those young guys even more going into the future. And now, if you're a marquee free agent, Chicago's starting to look more and more like an attractive destination where maybe, you get one more big star on that team to line up with Zach LaVine and with Nick Vucevic. And now you got yourself a squad that could possibly compete. Other trades that went on, Evan Fournier goes to the Celtics. The Celtics desperately needed another playmaker, someone to line up that could put points on the board next to Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. So that was a nice pickup for them, although he struggled and went scoreless in his first game as a Celtic. But I'm sure he'll figure that out. But what they really needed was a big guy. They were one of the teams that, frankly, as a Raptors fan, I was worried because I hate the Celtics as a Raps fan. But I was worried that they were going to be the team that get Vucevic, and I thought he would be a nice piece for them, or even the likes of like Aaron Gordon, but they didn't get either. So good for non-Celtics fans, I guess, that they didn't get a big. And speaking of Aaron Gordon, the Magic went ahead and unloaded him to Denver. They got a couple young players here and there, but overall that was a huge win in my opinion for the Nuggets. And then another big trade to talk about was that the Miami Heat got Victor Oladipo for Avery Bradley and Kelly Olynyk, who went back to Houston and might get bought out. So Houston really, they look silly now because they could have, traded away Victor Oladipo earlier in the season. Once they acquired him from Indiana. It was just all weird there. They could have had Karis LeVert instead. Not really sure what they were doing. And at the end of the day, they end up with a buyout guy and Avery Bradley and a second-round pick, I think. So that's just an ultimate loss for Houston. Houston, their basketball franchise, just like their NFL franchise right now, looks pretty lost. And, Raphael Stone, the new GM over there for the Rockets, had a press conference where he's talking about, to give him till 2030 to evaluate the trades that he's made because, the return for James Harden and the return for Vic Oladipo pretty much has just gotten a lot of draft picks. And to be honest, good for you to try to work your job security. But if I'm the Rockets front office and ownership, I don't know that I can just wait on Raphael Stone's draft picks to come into fruition, 9 years from now. Sorry, man, I need something now. And, GMs are doing this a lot where they're just trading for future picks. And it's kind of like the wait and see because obviously if one of those picks turns out to be the next Zion and another one of those turns out to be the next LeBron, then it looks like a huge win. Like, oh my God, they traded James Harden and got a guy like Zion and LeBron. But for that to happen, it's not guaranteed. You don't know that. So it's very risky. So as much as the GMs want to paint this picture of it was a great deal, look how many picks we got. At the end of the day, the picks are an unknown. Even if it's a super high pick, it could become a Greg Oden or Brandon Roy, great players who get injured and, after 4 years are not playing anymore. So I don't know. The way things are going, I feel like the GMs are smart in that they're trying to set themselves up some job security. But I think at some point it's going to flip, and ownership's going to be like, no, we need results now. So that happened. And then another big thing that happened in the NBA was LeBron going down with a severe ankle sprain. And I want to talk about this for a minute because I didn't realize this, but LeBron, maybe you didn't either, had a streak going. He had scored 10-plus points in 1,035 straight games, which is by far the longest such streak in NBA history of scoring 10-plus points. That includes injuries. As long as he played in that game, that means he had to score 10 points. And so if someone started the game and got injured 5 minutes into the game and were out for the game, that streak is over. So now check this out. This is just overall just crazy to me. Okay, so we're at 10:55 left in the second quarter. They're playing the Hawks. They're down 5, and there it is right there. All right, LeBron's down. It looks horrible. It looks like people don't know if it's his knee. Could it be his ankle? What is it? He's laying there. It's his ankle. Oh my God, it's the bottom of his right leg. This is horrible. This is an Oscar-worthy, looking injury. I mean, it looks really dang serious. The trainers come over. Obviously LeBron's in his, 18th or so season. He's been a beast in the league. He can't walk. I mean, it looks bad. Look at the replay. I mean, to be honest, it's incredible. Honestly speaking, it's incredible that he didn't get hurt worse. But, he's over there. It looks so bad. And, he's an older player. The worry's there. And then, literally, the timeout. And LeBron's right there. Oh, and he shoots the 3. He walks off with 10:40 left. So 15 game seconds later, he runs back on defense. He knew he had 7 points. And he was trying to get to 10 points. Look at him running on it. Then they call a timeout with 10:04 left. So 50 seconds of game time later. And now he walks off with the high ankle sprain. So after the injury, why did they take him out? I mean, I think we know the answer to that. So obviously, in my opinion, I don't know how to feel. I don't know if it's a little bit of disappointment in LeBron what were you really prioritizing this streak so much that you would risk your ankle? Like, this wasn't like a fourth quarter of a game, of a crucial game. This was literally like early in a ball game, in a regular season game. And, you lay it on the floor there, your ankles, I mean, at that time, it looks like maybe you broke your ankle, fractured it. Who knows? Everyone's worried. How the coaches even, this goes to show the power of LeBron. So I just don't get how no one has really said much about this, or maybe it's just because I've been away, but I didn't read any headlines about this or people criticizing him or, to me, I think you're putting personal goals here above the team. And granted, it's LeBron and he gets the pass, but it was just very strange for me to see this. And then he's out indefinitely. It's not like he's back the next game or misses a game. He's out for a while. He's going to be out another several weeks. And so just very interesting. I just wanted to point that out, and now you make of it what you will. But I was very intrigued by that, and I'm not sure exactly what the point of that was. Obviously, the only thing I can think of, and a lot of people can think of, is the only point was for him to keep this 10-plus point streak going, which, good for him. It continues. When he comes back, it'll continue because obviously all these games that he's not playing, don't count as a game that he didn't get 10 points because he's not playing at all. So we'll see. I just want to point that out because I wanted people to see that in case you missed that. And then the other thing that happened, obviously, after the trade deadline and all this went down was the buyout market. And maybe it's just me that I'm getting a little older. I'm starting to realize it more, but I'm starting to feel like the buyout market every year is starting to become a bigger and bigger deal. Like, bigger names are being bought out and bigger names are being, kind of shifting the landscape of the league. And I know that the buyout thing has been a thing for a long time, But, to have names like LaMarcus Aldridge and Andre Drummond, and even I know he's probably washed up, but like Blake Griffin out there in the buyout market, it almost feels like teams don't really, it's kind of diminishing what the trade deadline can do. If a guy's older on a bad team and, he's possibly looking to get moved or traded, I feel like if you're a smart team, you just wait and hope that no one, overpays for that player. And then he'll be in the buyout market and it's a brand new free agent and you'll get him for pennies on a dollar. I mean, Andre Drummond signed for pretty much the minimum that he could have at $800,000 with the Lakers, because he's, still got a lot of money from that contract that he had. And it's just, I mean, I don't know. Everyone's complaining about, like, for example, Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge both are joining the Brooklyn Nets. So people are, obviously all mad and frustrated because they're like, oh, but Brooklyn's getting the super team. To be honest, I don't blame them. I mean, it's fair game. At that point, what's Brooklyn supposed to do? I mean, if these guys want to come play, they're going to help your team. You sign them. And if you're these guys and you want to win a championship, that's where you're going to go right now. So there's no one to blame there except for, obviously, the negotiations that the Players Association has had with the league in allowing these things to happen. So, like I said, another guy, Gorgie Dang, signed with the San Antonio Spurs. He was a buyout candidate that a team like Boston was looking at. Boston's really the team that I feel like is a big away from, contending and being up there. Right now, they're the 7th seed. They're kind of not really playing great ball. They just lost to the Pelicans at home. So, but they're just a very top-heavy team with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and guard-heavy team. So, Tristan Thompson is not, and they traded away Daniel Tice, which I thought was strange. So, it's, I don't know. Some of these teams that are in the middle, obviously me being a Raptors fan, I also was hoping they would get a buyout guy, a big, because they are missing a big desperately. They get out-rebounded in almost every game. But I also think at this point, like, hey, you realize you're not winning a championship, get the better draft pick, and in a way, you got younger in that Norman Powell for Gary Trent Jr. deal. So, keep that movement along. Your core guys are still relatively young. Pascal's pretty young. OG's pretty young. They're still under contract. Fred just re-signed, and he's still relatively young. So I think, a team like that is good. And I just can't figure out if that's what the Celtics are doing. But I don't think that that's what they're doing because they're trading for a guy like Evan Fournier. And they're trading away a guy like Daniel Tice. So I feel like they're still with this mindset of competing now. But to me, they can't compete with the Brooklyns. They can't compete with the Philadelphias this year. So I just don't see the Celtics. They're in like that middle ground, and it's the worst place to be. And I think they were really banking on getting a buyout guy. And even a guy like Gorgie Dang picked the Spurs. So, they didn't get Andre Drummond. They didn't get LaMarcus Aldridge. So not sure exactly where a team like that is going, which then leads me to talk about some of the teams that have been playing solid ball. The Knicks are currently the 5th seed, and they're right behind Charlotte, Charlotte is the 4th seed. Now, Charlotte, they have an injury with LaMelo Ball. He's out pretty much for the year now, so that's going to hurt them. But, they're the 4th seed. Who would have thought that? The Charlotte Hornets are playing good basketball. They're the 4th seed. Right behind them is the Knicks. Thibodeau's got that squad playing hard. D Rose has come in and kind of, been that veteran presence that they've needed. They've got young guys there, so they're playing exciting basketball. And they're only a half game behind the 4th seed. So who would have thought that the Knicks could have home court advantage in the first round of the playoffs? And hey, if the first round of the playoffs has, a good amount of fans, the Garden is going to be electric. So I'm excited. Obviously, it's just exciting. If the Knicks, especially, they're such a likable team this year. I was never a huge Knicks guy, and their fans are always cocky, and I grew up in New York, but the Knicks just this year are fun. They play defense, they're scrappy, they're young guys that aren't cocky. They just play hard-nosed basketball, and they play defense. And so I root for the Knicks this year. I think they're a fun team. And the team that wasn't easy to root for, I'd say, a while ago, was the Atlanta Hawks. And now since their coaching changed, they got rid of Lloyd Pierce, or people were all confused about that, but the team sucked. And Nate McMillan takes over, and they're 9-4 with Nate McMillan as their head coach. They're 6-4 in the last 10. They've been playing good ball. They've been, either beating good teams on the road or being in close games against good teams like Phoenix last night and playing them tight till the end. So this team, Atlanta's the 6th seed. So some of these teams are surprising in the East right now that, if you just think back to like 4 months ago, 4 months ago when the season got started, no one would have thought that these teams would be where they're at. And I think it's super exciting. So I think the Hawks, play good ball now. As long as they keep this up, Trae Young and John Collins have kind of like figured their whatever chemistry out to play together. So a lot of exciting stuff in the NBA. And obviously, like I said, the trade deadline was huge, and then now the buyout market was like a huge thing. And I really don't know if it's gotten bigger over the years, like I said, or it's just that the names that are out there. But, and I've heard in conversations like that the league should do something. And obviously that's coming from, I feel like, the sore loser teams, like Raptor fans probably, or Celtics fans that are like, well, how come the Brooklyn Nets get everybody? And it's like, hey, it's fair game. If your team would have gotten them, like, we wouldn't have been complaining. If all these 3 guys would have signed with Toronto, I wouldn't have been complaining. I would have been happy about it and excited moving forward. So that part is fair game. What I think isn't fair game is how these guys just, get bought out and then almost just get to sign somewhere else while still maintaining a good contract. Like, it's just strange to me. I haven't been able to understand it exactly. Like, Al Horford right now is on the Thunder. He's a good veteran player. And they pretty much told him, like, hey, you're going to keep getting paid. Just sit, which is fine. I don't have a problem with that. I think that's your job. You go in to work, and if at work they tell you, like, hey, we're still paying you. We're still going to come through with all our obligations, but this is the role we want you to play now. That's fair from the team to do. I just don't understand, like at what point why wouldn't Al Horford, what's the difference between him wanting to get bought out and Andre Drummond getting bought out? And obviously, I guess it's the team trying to save the money. But then I guess I just don't understand why the Thunder wouldn't buy out Al Horford to save themselves some money, unless they tried to and Al Horford was like, no way, like, I don't want to lose any money. But I don't understand how all these things go on. Obviously, I'll do my best to talk to people that I know within the league to try to figure out how these things work. But, it just seems like at this point, like I said, if there's a, literally, if you're the Raptors right now and you were trying to trade Kyle Lowry, he's on the last year of his deal, and he's making $30 million, and teams, frankly, just don't want to overpay for him, and I understand. And they don't want to put in as much, big salary players to match the salary with him. Why wouldn't you just wait and have Lowry request a buyout? And if you're the Raptors, I mean, obviously you still have playoff hopes, so you want him to play for you, but it's almost like, yeah, why not save the money, and just as an ownership group, I would just save the money and give that playing time to the young guy if I know that I'm not making the playoffs. So it's just so much strategy that I think if the flustered, older veteran guy is on a bad team, you just wait. Let the trade line pass. He's going to get bought out more than likely, especially if it's a guy that's, hungry for a ring. And then what happens, and this is the part that people are complaining about, is that obviously that guy is more than likely going to sign with a good team because he's trying to chase the title and he's already gotten his money. Because even a lot of people thought Andre Drummond would sign with a bad team so that he could put up stats so he could get a nice contract this offseason. But I think the guys like that know. They're like, hey, if I win a ring, though, that's going to bring my value up also, just as much as putting up the great numbers on a bad team. So there were rumors he could go to Charlotte, just pretty much be a stat filler there and get his, 2020 games all the time so that he could get a fat contract in the offseason. But I think Andre Drummond was like, nah, I'll go to the Lakers. I'll put up solid numbers, less than what I would put up in Charlotte, but I'll be playing further into the season. I'll be seen more. I'll be looked at as an integral part of this team. And if we win a championship, I'm a huge part of that. Look at Dwight Howard. Dwight Howard a couple years ago was possibly not even going to have a job in the NBA, and then he wins a ring. He plays well with the Lakers. He kind of, has a resurgence, and now he's in Philly, and he's playing solid ball there too. So interesting stuff. Make of it what you will. But I definitely think that's something that the next time that the Players Association and the league sit down and talk, there's going to be a lot of hot debates there about what to do with all this kind of control and, what's best for the ownership group, what's best for the teams, and what's best for the players. It'll be interesting. Hopefully it doesn't lead to a lockout and they can just shake hands and agree on it. And they got a lot of TV money coming, so hopefully they work that out. Whew. All right. Now we're going to talk NFL real quick because recently the NFL has officially announced they are going to a 17-game season, which for us NFL fans, awesome. We've been wanting this for a while. I don't know why they played 4 preseason games. If you watch football like me and you watch almost every game that your team is playing, you realize they don't need to play half of these preseason games because they're pretty much just practices with the backups in uniform. And the starters, most of the time definitely really don't play in the last game. And in the first game of the preseason, they play like 1 possession and that's it. So at least now there's only 3 preseason games and there's 17 regular season games, which means that the season is going to be 18 weeks. It's still just one bye week per team. So all I can say is awesome. More football, more meaningful football. And that's just a whole lot exciting. Plus, it kind of seems like the season now will start a week earlier for us football fans because instead of having that 4th preseason week, that's it. It's the first week of the season. They're playing. Another exciting thing that came out of the NFL too is that they plan on having full stadiums. I don't really know how realistic that is, but obviously the closer to normal we can get with the vaccine being out and people starting to feel better about it and, people that are scared to be outside and be around people, they can choose to go get this vaccine and feel good about themselves and healthy for themselves. Like, that's great. If you want it, do it. And then now you feel better. And then now we can get closer to normality. So all of this is super exciting. And and there was a couple trades that I'm going to break down here in the NFL that I thought were very interesting. Pretty much I look at it as it was just like one big 3-team deal. But this is pretty much exactly with the draft coming up. The draft is on April 29th. So that's the next big thing in the NFL, which obviously we're pumped for. The first trade is the Dolphins and the Niners. So the Dolphins have Tua. Tua and Fitzpatrick were going in and out last year. And frankly, I just thought they should have played Fitzpatrick because Tua wasn't showing much. And the team was actually good. Their defense was solid and they were competing, for the playoffs. So if it was up to me, I would have just let Tua sit and you use this coming year as an evaluation. But almost what happened is Fitz kind of beat him out essentially during the regular season. So now there's a little bit of that gray cloud over the Dolphins, not knowing if Tua's their guy or not really. So that's the Dolphins situation, obviously with the most important position on the field at quarterback. Now the 49ers have Jimmy Garoppolo. And Jimmy Garoppolo, obviously this team gets to the Super Bowl a couple years ago. They have the lead. They lose to Mahomes and the Chiefs. And the questions start coming about Jimmy G. Is he the quarterback? Is he not the quarterback? And it just reminds me of some guy that's not committed to his girlfriend. And people keep asking are you guys going to get married? And it's I'm not sure. And that doesn't do well for neither party. Because obviously, in this analogy, the boyfriend is always unsure. And then it doesn't give the girlfriend any confidence that this is going to get to where a happy marriage should go, I guess. So Jimmy G is that quarterback that's waiting for the official commitment from the organization, but the organization doesn't want to give it. And so the fan base, everyone's unsure. Is Jimmy G our guy? Is he not our guy? So, any chance the 49ers get to talk about a quarterback, they talk about how they would have liked Kirk Cousins when he was a free agent. So in my analogy, it might be a shitty analogy, but it's like the guy talking about I could have dated so-and-so, or I could have dated this person. And that's just not a good look, and there's no commitment to Jimmy G. And to further prove that there's no commitment to Jimmy G, this is the trade that goes down. The 49ers, they had the 12th pick in the draft. They trade that to the Dolphins. So the Dolphins get the 12th pick. They get a 3rd round pick in this year's draft. And they get 2 future first-round picks for the 2022 draft, so next year, and the year after that. So that's a lot. And the Niners get the number 3 pick that the Dolphins had. So obviously, at least for Miami's sake, they're saying, hey, this gray cloud that we put on Tua last year with Fitz, forget it. We are committing to Tua this year. We're not going to draft any of these young, attractive quarterbacks that are out there right now. We don't need a top 3 pick because the top 3 picks are more than likely going to be the top 3 quarterbacks. We are going to move all the way down to 12. We're going to move down the draft board. We don't need one of those quarterbacks. We need other weapons to help Tua. So that's the Dolphins' message. So I respect it. They're saying Tua's our guy. Let's go. We're committed. The Niners traded this draft capital, not just, again, I mean, think of it as a pick swap with the 12 and the 3 pick. But to compensate for that 9-pick difference, they gave up a 3rd-round pick in this year's draft and a future 1st-round pick in next year's draft and another 1st-round pick in the year after that draft. So they're giving up quite a bit because a 1st-round pick in the NFL is pretty valuable. That's really valuable to get the number 3 pick. So obviously everyone expects Trevor Lawrence to be the number 1 pick. And now all of a sudden Zach Wilson has emerged and everyone expects him to be the number 2 pick. You're trading for the number 3 pick. You're not just looking to get a linebacker or, there is no game-changing, Chase Young type defensive player in this year's draft like that. And if it's a weapons guy, this is a deep wide receivers draft. So the Niners are looking at a quarterback. And so this is very interesting to me. Justin Fields has been, obviously, in mock drafts, that's who people expect the Niners to take. So this is going to get really complicated for the Niners. I don't know what's going to happen. Obviously, I'm assuming they're going to draft a quarterback. And this is just going to make their relationship with Jimmy G so much more rocky because Jimmy G is not going to is having less of a commitment from the team. And the team obviously has less and less confidence in Jimmy G. So they're getting this rookie quarterback. Now, again, the Niners, that's the direction they're going in. You can tell they're not sold on Jimmy G. They're going to try to at least draft for a quarterback for the future. They're going to probably let Jimmy G either flame out this season or take the reins. And if they do, if they like Justin Fields, they're just going to trade Jimmy G, get his value up and trade him. Or, if Garoppolo all of a sudden has an amazing season, then maybe you trade Justin Fields and you always have that asset. But I love what the Dolphins did. The Dolphins, so again, they get the 12th pick, a 3rd-round pick, a 1st-round pick next year, and the year after that. They go on and they flip that with the Eagles. So they give the Eagles the 12th pick and next year's 1st-round pick that they got from the Niners for the number 6 pick in this year's draft. So overall, to make this easier to understand, the Dolphins traded the number 3 pick in the draft and in return got the number 6 pick. So they dropped 3 slots in the draft this year. But they added a 3rd-rounder for this year and a 1st-rounder in 2023 just to move down 3 spots. So the Dolphins, to me, are the big winners in this trade because they realize, you know what, we're going with Tua. We don't need one of these top 3 picks. What we need is a weapon. And this is a deep wide receiver draft. I don't expect the first receiver to go until either 4 or 5 in the draft, with the Falcons possibly needing a playmaker. So they're going to get a great wide receiver. Might even get the receiver that they want. And they added themselves a 3rd-rounder this year and a 1st-round pick in 23. To me, that's a huge win for the Dolphins. They have a route that they're going to take with their franchise. Now, whether Tua pans out or not, at least they have direction and they are decisive in what they're doing. Now, the Eagles, I don't really know what the point of this was for them because they are a team that needs weapons. They're a team that needs playmakers. And they dropped back 6 spots to the 12th pick, which, they're slated right now to get a cornerback, which is fine. But, if you're going to go with Jalen Hurts, he barely had receivers last year. You need to help him. And obviously, and then they get a 1st-round pick in next year's draft. So to me, the Eagles pretty much are saying, hey, this year for us is a loss. So we're going to start collecting assets for next year and the year after that, which is okay. But, again, if you're thinking about the here and now and, you want Jalen Hurts to be the successor to whether it was Carson Wentz or Nick Foles, you got to help him because if he struggles this year, now that question is looming over you about who's your quarterback of the future. So, that was a lot to get through, but a lot of questions there. And then the last thing I want to talk about real quick while we're on the NFL is these pro days that these quarterbacks are doing. There's been highlights all over the place, and I think this is just because the media needs content right now. But in my opinion, a quarterback pro day, I'm just watching a guy play catch with his buddy, in an empty stadium. So I don't hold much weight. Everyone was all up in arms about this Zach Wilson throw that he made. Like, what? Game tape. That's what matters to me. These guys are the professional football players is what they're striving to be. And in the next level, they're going to be playing against better defenses than they were playing in college. And they're going to be playing against professional athletes who are like doing everything they can to prevent that pass from being completed. But we're over here like applauding them for making throws to wide open guys. So I don't get the hoopla over it. It's like a dude just playing catch. So yeah, the throws may be like right where they need to be, but that's like the bare minimum. There's no pressure. I mean, there's pressure obviously because there's scouts there and stuff, but I'm saying there's no pressure from a 300-pound lineman running right at you, a linebacker chasing you. That's different. And I feel like you're not getting any more footage of that right now at a pro day, when you have the footage from their college seasons. So I just wanted to mention that because I've seen these highlights and all this about like, oh, this guy made this throw in the pro day. But I'm like, well, what? I mean, I'm sure these guys have been scouted this whole past season. Everyone knew Trevor Lawrence was more than likely going to be the number one pick. I think it'd be outrageous if the Jaguars hadn't had a scout guy or 10 be at his games this last year, watching him live during real reps, during a game, during a big-time game. So again, that's just me. But I think it's just because we're kind of in a NFL dry spell right now where they need content. Obviously, thankfully, that trade happened, or the trades that went down happened to shake things up. And, I think we're now on like mock draft 56 because there's just so much need for NFL content right now. So that's all I wanted to say. I'll probably come back with another episode later this week. Might have my brother on. We'll talk a little bit about the Raptors, our Raptors, and where they're headed, and talk some NFL. Obviously, the closer we get to the NFL draft, hopefully other things get shaken up, some trades here and there that we could talk about. But for now, we just gotta watch the NBA, which is popping. Baseball is gonna start. We can talk some baseball as well. But the NBA is about to hit a very exciting point right now. Obviously, teams trying to fight for positioning, and this year is different. The 10th seed has a shot this year. So with the play-in tournament, so we'll see. So again, thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe, leave comments, let me know. And if you want to talk with me and join me, I'm opposed to talking to you guys too and getting some other fan bases, their thoughts and their opinions on whether it's their basketball team, football team, baseball team, whatever. So talk to you guys soon. Thanks again.